We are back with you live once again on another Johnny Torch live broadcast. Welcome one and all to another Torch News Roundup, another edition of the Torch News Roundup here. Where are we? We're at number 174 live broadcast and number 152, I believe that's correct, for our Torch News Roundups. So, yeah. We got a lot of stuff on tonight. Boy, tonight, you don't want to miss it. This is a jam-packed show, you know, a really big shoe. A really big shoe. For those of you that are under probably 25, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But an old fella in the 50s by the name of Ed Sullivan used to say that when he had a really big show. So welcome in on the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on Johnny Torch Live. What can I say? Let's get straight to it, right? Why dilly-dally? Why just fool around when we've got important subjects to talk about? And we're starting a little bit early here, so hopefully you guys can check it out. But let's do a little house cleaning like I like to do before we get started. That's the time to do it. Nobody's going to stay with the show all the way to the end. So, and if you're watching this in the rebroadcast, I'm sure you're going to fast forward the next 2 minutes. But if you are kind, you will not fast forward, and you will listen as I tout The Adventures of Bullett's Bourbon Private Eye, our action-adventure series that will just thrill the dickens out of you. It'll thrill you. It'll thrill the life out of you, or into you, whichever you prefer. And we are working on the second remaster right now. This is the third remaster. I'm going backwards through my books. This is the third story, When the Night Comes, and it is about the teaming up of Bullett's Bourbon's two arch rivals, Carrot Top and Pencil Neck, as they seek world domination. And we're working on the second remaster, which is the episode where Bullett's Bourbon meets Pencil Neck. And that should be done hopefully in a couple of months. I say a couple of months because the printing is what's the big delay. You know, when you got to get the stuff to the printer and they take their time, do they ever, to get back to you. So the work itself will probably be done in the next 2 weeks, but probably not going to be out for purchase for another, I want to say 6 weeks at least, but it could be more. I don't want to set myself up for disappointment. But also check out the link in the description below, and you will find the link to our website where we have a few pages on display. Oh, I keep meaning to update those pages. I've had the same pages on display for 6 months. But, yeah, I want to get you a couple new pages to look at. But, you know, this is the big to-do. This is the book of the future. This is the one you're going to want to be reading and talking about with all your friends. The Adventures of Bullett's Bourbon Private Eye. It's an old-school action-adventure series, all ages. And, you know, it's sort of what I consider a harken back to sort of the 80s action hero, the A-Team, Knight Rider, all the stuff I grew up on as a little shaver. And I kind of distilled all that into the comic book formula. You know, the colorful and larger-than-life characters that you'd see more in comics than on television in the 80s. So it's a perfect blend, so to speak. It's a perfect marriage of both the, you know, the colorful and extreme and sort of the, I don't want to say simplistic, but, you know, it's one of those series where you're not going to have a scorecard to keep up with it, you know? It's basically, if you could follow, like, the adventures of Indiana Jones or James Bond, it's sort of the same thing. It's mostly self-contained stories that, you know, don't have a heck of a lot of continuity, but different characters come in and out, and, you know, it would probably benefit you to know who they are, because we don't spend a whole lot of time catching you up. But, for instance, we have Scotch, Detective Scotch. He's in this episode. He makes his first appearance in our second story arc, which is the second remaster we're working on now. And you got to be excited about the remasters, because like I always say, I was pretty impatient, and now to go back and fix them up so they look like first-class productions like I always wanted them to look is great. I got to work on the first issue remaster after this, which is going to take a lot of time, and I'm not looking forward to it. But this is the time when I'm making our major push to try to get these issues in stores in your local comic shop. We're going to try pushing them into local comic shops a little more in 2020. Also, check the link in the description below for our Twitter page, where you can check out all the shenanigans I get up to on Twitter. Some good, some not so good, some downright bad. I always tout my Twitter page is a disaster. And maybe I'm understating, but I think I'm overstating. I might be understating. It could be worse. It could be worse than I think it is, which is bad enough. But Twitter is sort of a dumpster fire, right? Doesn't it seem like no matter what you do, nothing good really comes of Twitter? I don't know. Maybe it just seems that way to me. But definitely, if you're into Twitter, that's the only social media besides YouTube that I am currently on. So I can't be swayed to go on to something else. I don't know. People have told me Instagram is really the place to be if you're an artist and so forth. But I don't know. I just hung on to Twitter and drama, right? Everybody loves the drama. That's what it is. It's all about drama, and Twitter's where you find the drama. So got to be at the heart of the drama. Okay, so yeah, with that all wrapped up, check out the link in the descriptions below. Again, I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm kind of tired, so last week I wasn't feeling too good. I was under the weather, and I still managed to do a expert performance on the show, so I'm hoping for a repeat there, and I luck out and do a pretty good show here, despite getting like 5 hours sleep, something like that. Alright, so a lot of stuff to cover here. Let's take a look at our first... Well, this isn't even a topic. We got a new image from Birds of Prey, the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. How are they going to fit that on the marquee? I don't know. They're probably just going to call it Birds of Prey. That's Kathy Yan, of course, as the director. And this is apparently Harley in a roller derby, which... I was in Newbury Comics yesterday, and I did pick up one of the issues, and they showed her in the roller derby gear, and I guess that's something that they're doing in the comics with her now, that she's a roller derby, which kind of makes sense, I guess, with the character, you know what I mean? She seems like that would be something that she'd be into. But, yeah, I don't know. I should really... Maybe if you got any recommendations for a Harley Quinn comic, let me know. Let me know what you think I should check out. Like I said, I don't really check out a lot of comics these days. It's disappointing to me that I don't, because I love comics, you know, I write comics, but as I've always said, it's nearly impossible to be able to produce your own comics and read comics at the same time, because they're so expensive. So, I mean, that's like, Ethan Van Sciver's Cyberfrog is hitting the backers this week, and congratulations to Uncle E. I would love to get a copy, but it's like $25 is kind of a commitment that all my free money goes to the production of Bolt's Bourbon, and that's more important to me than trying to spend like big bucks on entertainment. But again, hopefully at some point I'll be able to get a look at it. But yeah, if you can recommend something in the line of Harley Quinn, I'd be interested in seeing kind of what I'm in for with this film. Again, I don't know. I'm not particularly looking forward to it, but this seems to be the wave that the DCEU is going for now. These R-rated films, and we'll get to that in a second with the Joker. But let me know what you think in the comments below. I want to thank also all of our subs. We got another new sub. We're now up to 96 subs, so we're doing pretty well for ourselves. We want to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Hopefully that comes to pass. But again, the chat room's open as well, so let me know what you think about the Harley Quinn new image that we have here. Of course, that is from the upcoming Birds of Prey film. Okay, so let's go on now to... I haven't really talked a whole lot about the Joker controversy, because there really isn't too much to talk about. I mean, this is the way the left is. This is the Chicken Little type approach that they have, and a lot of people are saying that it's like they're hoping for a disaster to happen. They're hoping for someone to go nuts and blame the Joker movie, so that they'll have, some justification in these stories that they keep putting out there of, this is going to appeal to the dangerous incel that's going to go out there and shoot up a place because they've seen this movie and it vindicates them, or some such nonsense. I said on Twitter, this reminds me kind of what the liberals were doing to Mel Gibson during The Passion of the Christ, where they were like pushing him to, put a disclaimer in front of the movie saying, please don't kill Jews over this movie. And it seemed ridiculous to me at the time as well. It's like, how do you equate, a film with real-world violence? A film should not really spur a normal, sane person to doing anything, barbaric or anarchistic or whatever. It's like you had to have been deranged from the beginning to have anything set you off, be it a movie or a television show or a song or something. And again, this is sort of, I think, just the media trying to capitalize on, on one hand, taking a swipe at incels. Take that, you incel. And this whole, Second Amendment issue, I don't want to get too political, but, it's sort of like they want justification in having some nutcase go off now and they can blame it on the Joker, which, of course, there was the Dark Knight Rises tragedy. I forget where that was, but the people are bringing that up again, which the perpetrator wasn't even identifying themselves as the Joker. After the fact, it seems like a lot of media outlets kind of jumped to that conclusion, but after the fact, they really didn't have a whole lot to hang their hat on with blaming, Heath Ledger's Joker for that sad shooting. Again, apologies if I have to wet my whistle once in a while. Now let's take a look at the copy here. Warner Brothers released a statement on the controversy regarding Joker, saying, neither the fictional character nor the film is an endorsement of real-world violence of any kind. It is not the intention of the film, filmmakers, or studio to hold this character up as a hero. So, that it's another thing, like I said, about the Mel Gibson thing, that should go without saying. It's kind of a pathetic indictment that they have to say something like that. Now, of course, my feelings on this. I don't particularly feel the need for a Joker movie to begin with. I don't think... You see, that... I'm not saying I agree with them, but that does open the can of worms where the Joker is either going to be foiled by no-name individuals, thus making Batman irrelevant, or he has got to become sympathetic, and you have to understand where he's coming from, and he becomes a anti-hero, kind of along the lines of what they did with Venom in the Venom movie. He couldn't, of course, be the villain because the film is called Venom. And in this case, I think they're obviously going for a more Taxi Driver type thing, and, it's not supposed to set up Joker as this hero, but, again, he is the protagonist per se, so it is kind of a difficult road to hoe. This is not unlike the controversy of Last Blood that just came out last week too, with Rambo 5, as some would call it, and it seems like trying to build something out of the films that is not really a problem. It's trying to seek out a problem where there is none. All right, let's see. Todd Phillips, in an interview with IGN, had a lot to say on the matter. He said, I really think there have been a lot of think pieces written by people who proudly state they haven't even seen the movie and don't need to. I would just argue that you might want to watch the movie. You might want to watch it with an open mind. The movie makes statements about a lack of love, childhood trauma, lack of compassion in the world. I think people can handle that message. So, again, yeah, I mean, sometimes, and this is not necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes a negative can be more instructive than a positive. So I wouldn't really throw the baby out with the bathwater with this film, because a lot of times you can learn the right message by seeing someone, doing the wrong thing. It becomes a cautionary tale, in other words. And the ultimate moral of the story is don't be like the Joker, or as a society, don't create the Joker. Which I'm sure is probably pretty much what the intention is here. Again, this is not really up my alley, this film, so I'm not trying to prop it up or bash it, really. I think it's kind of unnecessary, but at the same time, I don't think this is a malignant evil that is waiting to spread to, insane minds all around the world, It's just a movie. It should probably be viewed as such. Okay, Joaquin Phoenix, excuse me, meanwhile expressed his hope that those watching the movie would have the sense to realize it's not something that should be taken inspiration from. Quote, "Well, I think that for most of us, you're able to tell the difference between right and wrong, and those that aren't capable of interpreting anything in the way that they may want to. People misinterpret lyrics from songs. They misinterpret passages from books. So I don't think it's the responsibility of a filmmaker to teach the audience morality or the difference between right and wrong. I mean, to me, I think that's obvious." Yeah, I don't disagree with him at all there. That's pretty much, like I said at the beginning of this, I didn't really read the copy before I started saying what I said, and I really think the same way, that if you're going to be inspired to do horrendous things, you can find that inspiration anywhere, because you're bound to be looking for it. Whether it's a viable excuse or not, you're going to find that excuse. I don't think the Joker film can be blamed on that. Phoenix clearly has given this thought since an interview last week where he walked out on an interview that addressed the possibility of viewers carrying out real-life violence. He was quoted as saying, "I think if you have somebody that has that level of emotional disturbance, they can find fuel anywhere. I just don't think that you can function that way. The truth is, you don't know what is going to be the fuel for somebody." So, yeah, there you go. There you have it. I agree. I think that's pretty much what most sane, normal people would think regarding this film, that it's basically a work of fiction, and anybody that would take this film the wrong way is going to take anything the wrong way. Alright, so let's move on now. Leave me your thoughts below on this supposed Joker controversy. A lot of people, the military and the police are all getting ready for riots that'll probably never happen. So, whatever, I don't know. Alright, next up we have the Batman has experienced some casting. Again, do you really want me to go off on this story? I mean, you see, we're in the apex of woke casting. This is the era of woke casting. And it's just gonna happen. And I just have to wonder how long it's gonna happen, because we really haven't been too far removed from the days when it was perfect casting and everybody was happy, and I don't recall anybody clamoring for, huge departures in the casting playbook. I mean, I remember when Nolan's Batman Begins was being cast. Back then it was called Intimidation Game. Did anybody remember that? I go back that far, at least, in hunting stories on the internet. It was called Batman the Intimidation Game, and they said they were looking at Morgan Freeman, and a lot of people were suggesting even back then that it would possibly be Commissioner Gordon. And of course, Morgan Freeman being a great actor, that's fine, but my feeling then is the same as now. The actor has to resemble the character as drawn. And a lot of people don't want to hear it, but representation of the character from the comics, the visual representation, is half the character. If you can't visually recognize that character and the history in that character and the whole backstory and history and wealth that character brings, you're not going to connect with that character in the same way. It's going to feel like something different. It's not going to feel genuine. And so when they cast for Batman Begins, they cast, I'm going to forget his name right now. Oh, man, he's a good actor. But when they cast, this is why I need people in the chat to tell me when I'm goofing up. But when they cast him as Commissioner Gordon, it was a godsend. He was a great actor, and he actually looked the part. And I made a rather whimsical request on Twitter where I said, well, if this is the casting, if they're going to cast Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon, they need to cast Bryan Cranston as Lucius Fox. That's just it. That's the way it's got to go. Because if we're going to do this whole colorblind casting thing, and we're going to bypass Bryan Cranston, who was, you know, probably the premier choice of most fans of Batman for Commissioner Gordon. Some want him to be Lex Luthor. I think if I had a choice, I'd probably say Gordon probably fits him a little bit better. You know, Luthor's kind of typecasting because of Breaking Bad. People see him, you know, playing a good villain and being bald and all this and that. But I probably would say Cranston for Gordon if it was me. It's up to me. But again, that's not going to happen. Lucius Fox is going to have to stay black because Lucius Fox is black in the comics, and you cannot change a black character to a white character. But you can do the reverse because diversity. So let me read the copy before I continue the rant. But let's see. The Hollywood Reporter has leaked that Golden Globe and Primetime Emmy winner Jeffrey Wright from Westworld is currently in talks to join Robert Pattinson in Matt Reeves' highly anticipated The Batman as one of the Caped Crusaders' most trusted and loyal allies, Commissioner James Gordon. His casting would also seem to confirm that the live-action DC Films universe will essentially be given a soft reboot by the studio, as neither Ben Affleck or J.K. Simmons will be returning to the parts they played in 2017's Justice League. So again, yeah, I mean, J.K. Simmons, he was fantastic as Commissioner Gordon. I mean, we only had a small bit that he was in, but he also seemed that he would play him in the type. But see, I can understand recasting for the sake that they're doing a younger Batman here. And that was, you know, if Batman was supposed to be like whatever he was in that film, 48 years old or something, obviously Commissioner Gordon is like mid-70s or something like that. You can go younger if you're going to do younger Batman. This Batman's going to be, I don't know, 30. So Gordon could be probably 50, 55, maybe something like that. This, of course, has led a lot of idiots to start, you know, hooting and howling about how they've won and now Batgirl will be black because, you know, can't have those redheads in in a superhero movie for some reason. Well, in all Hollywood, I think they all seem to be coming down and race changing the redheads. I don't understand why, but it does make sense that if Commissioner Gordon is going to be cast as a black character, that they're going to have to eventually introduce Batgirl as a black actress, with a black actress. And again, we are seeing the elimination, if I may use that word, but it is completely apt, the elimination of the redheaded character from Hollywood, in Hollywood, by Hollywood. And I think it's a problem. I mean, you can even see in this image right here, I mean, I didn't choose this image on purpose, really, other than it shows both Gordon and Jeffrey Wright, but Gordon is kind of a redhead before he, you know, his hair gets white from age. I mean, he's basically a redhead, and Barbara Gordon is a redhead, and now, of course, we're not going to have the redheaded Batgirl or Commissioner Gordon. So, again, there you have it. It's just, it's woke casting. It's ridiculous. And I don't know if this is this enough to turn the tide? Probably not. I do sense that a lot of people are starting to get fed up with this. I think a lot of people are getting less afraid of the stigma of saying, you know, just make the characters look like they do in the books, you know what I mean? Just cast an actor that looks like... I mean, it would be one thing if... That's why it's difficult, like, for instance, with Superman, they had to make Perry White black, because you really don't have another black character in the Superman franchise. You're going to have to race change somebody, unless you're going to introduce a new character, which is what I would say to do, is introduce a new character. But in Batman, you already have Lucius Fox. You have the Fox family. I mean, I believe Lucius' son has become Batwing at this point. I'm not really, like I said, up with the comics right now, with the current state, but I mean, it's not like you don't have black characters in the Batman family. And why not go that way? But, you know, that would make too much sense. It would be much easier to just take a character that's been in the legacy, in the lore for the last practically 80 years. I mean, Commissioner Gordon was an early invention, and if Batman's 80 this year, he's got to be at least 79. But again, this is, it's going to happen. It's going to keep happening until people start biting back and start saying, look, I don't want to support this. I don't want to support this. And I think Batman is too popular a character, just like Spider-Man, where this isn't going to make a big difference to people. I mean, the only time we're going to really have that kind of pushback is, like, if they cast, a Black Wolverine or something like that. I mean, then you're going to start having people start questioning, well, at what point do we completely concede that the character's look is not important anymore? That the look of the character is not 50% of the character? I don't know if we're there yet. I think it's going to take something very striking, a Superman, a Batman maybe, something like that. And that's what, might turn the tide, and people start saying, look, enough with the woke casting already. And again, like I said, it's not really a racial thing. I am all for the black characters that already exist to get their spotlight. I mean, we have Blade coming up. Glad to see that happening. There's so many other characters. I mean, Luke Cage. They could be doing something more with Luke Cage. I've been saying for many years, where is the Static Shock film or TV show, live action? A Static Shock is one of the most popular, more recent created black characters, and they're sitting on that property like, why? Why? Especially a lot of people my age grew up with, or were teenagers, with Static Shock. Why not make that? No, we're going to continue to just keep race-changing ancillary characters until, people start getting fed up with it, and then they can be called racist for not liking it, and so on and so forth. And again, the racism, it's just a way to make you shut up, basically, because nobody likes being called a racist. And this has nothing to do with racism. I mean, there's a lot of black fans that don't like race-changing characters because it could conceivably be considered an insult. You're basically saying, look, the characters that are black that you've been a fan of, we don't think they're important enough to really focus on, so we're going to just take a character that's been white for 75 years or something and just cast him with a black actor because we can't come up with anything more feasible than just taking a white character and changing them. It's just sad. Anyway, let me know what you think. Again, another rant, another tirade by me, by yours truly. But again, I don't like when they do this, and it's infuriating to me because I am a purist, and I make no apologies for that. I want every character to be represented exactly the way they look in the comics. You can have some minor changes, with costumes looking a little bit different. I mean, I've always said, obviously, you can't take the 1939 or 1940 version of Robin's costume and make it work today. I think, having certain things changed is not necessarily a bad thing. If you're making a period piece, if you're making a 40s Batman, or if you're making a 60s Batman, that's fine to use that costume. I think it would still fit in. But certain things you can change. I don't see the purpose of race changing a character, particularly if you can bring in other characters. I've always said the example with Arrow, bringing in John Diggle. They kind of, I think if they had it to do over again, they would have just called him John Stewart from the start. But the idea was, we're going to have a new character that's going to help out the hero and create something new. And the character of Spartan, I think, already existed before Arrow, but they basically didn't just take another character, race change them, and slap him into the series, you know? Alright, so let's move on. There's more Batman news, the Batman news, I should say, with Jonah Hill. I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm really chomping at the bit for this guy to be cast either. I mean, I got nothing against him, but let's see. Variety is reporting that two-time Academy Award nominee Jonah Hill is in talks for a villain role, and according to Collider, it sounds like he's being eyed to play the Riddler and not the Penguin, although it's still unconfirmed at this point. Hill's deal still hasn't been finalized, so it's best to tread with caution, as talks could still fall apart. Let's see. According to Collider's Jeff Snyder, Hill is dead set on playing the Riddler because he has long admired Jim Carrey and how he transitioned from comedies to more dramatic roles, which Jonah has also done in his career. Plus, Riddler in Batman Forever is not as iconic as Penguin in Returns, so it's easier to reinvent. So it sounds like the studio is like pushing for Hill to play the Penguin, which is, you know, that's the obvious way to go. You know, again, having the character look like the actor. You know, Hill is sort of rotund, and you would expect he would play a good Penguin. As for the Riddler, I take offense at that, to be honest with you, because I think the Penguin in Batman Returns was reinvented like too much and made a grotesquerie, and that was not something that did the Penguin any favors. As a matter of fact, I don't think anybody really took the character seriously for a good dozen or so years after that movie because of that movie. As for the Riddler, yeah, I think Carrey was over the top, but I wouldn't say that he completely destroyed that character the way that... And again, it's not DeVito's fault. I mean, I always say, if anybody was born to play the Penguin, it was Danny DeVito. It was just the direction that Tim Burton, you know, went in with his crazy... surrealist type proclivities. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think that the Penguin is something more suited for Jonah Hill, or could you see him play the Riddler? I don't know. I think probably the Penguin is more along the lines. Alright, let's take a look now. This is some more casting for the Snake Eyes movie, which this is pretty much all, you know, it's just outright a reboot now at this point. I was hoping this was going to fit in somehow with the pre-established G.I. Joe universe. Not that it was perfect, mind you, not that there was, you know, not that it was flawless, not that it was beyond, you know, fixing. But, let's see, Ursula Corbero, which is, I believe, how you pronounce it, is being cast, according to the Wrap, as Cobra's villainous Baroness. She'll join Henry Golding as Snake Eyes and Andrew Koji's Storm Shadow in the spin-off reboot of Paramount's G.I. Joe, Snake Eyes. Again, I liked the original actress that played the Baroness. I don't really know that it was needed to recast. But again, this is apparently going to be a new continuity. I don't know. Red and R.I.P.D. director Robert Schwenke. I have to say it like that. Robert Schwenke is set to helm the movie from a script by Beauty and the Beast screenwriter Evan Spilotoklerosis. Every time I talk about this movie, I can't help but think they got the greatest monikers working on this. Beauty and the Beast screenwriter Evan Spilotoklerosis. The plot is said to focus on the early days of the silent masked warrior as he attempts to join the ranks of the ninja clan known as Starkridge. I'm not even going to try to say that again. Snake Eyes is set to hit theaters October 16th, 2020. About a year from now, we'll see the Schwenke and Spilotoklerosis version of Snake Eyes G.I. Joe. Let me move on. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that, as you can tell. All right, let's talk about some sad news. If you were a fan of the Marvel, it was the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. version of Ghost Rider. I liked it. I was kind of disappointed that they're not going to go any further with it. It's been confirmed that Hulu has decided not to move forward with Ghost Rider, the live-action series that was set to star Gabriel Luna as Robbie Reyes. And of course, he was the Robbie Reyes version of the character from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let's see, back in May, Hulu picked up 2 new live-action projects from Marvel, one being Ghost Rider and the other Hellstrom. The latter remains on track, but this one reportedly fell apart after the two sides, quote-unquote, reached a creative impasse that could not be resolved. As a result, the streaming giant decided to put the brakes on the project. Creative differences is an excuse that tends to be thrown around. However, days ago, a rumor started doing the rounds which claimed that Marvel Studios' Kevin Feige have plans for Ghost Rider. Honestly, it's more likely why the show is no longer happening. Let's see. Ghost Rider has only previously appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and given that show's fairly low viewership numbers, it won't be hard for Feige to reboot the hero for the big screen. It's doubtful that the satanic superhero will get his own movie, but with the likes of Blade and Moon Knight on the way, it's easy to imagine him having a place in the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe, something that's a lot more exciting than him starring on a Hulu TV series. So basically, they're going to get rid of the Robbie Reyes version, which is... Like I said, I enjoyed Luna as the Robbie Reyes version, but if they're going to reboot with Johnny Blaze, that's probably worth losing. In my opinion, it's worth losing. I don't know why they can't keep them both going at the same time, but I see the point being, if you're going to have a Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider television show on Disney Plus, do you really want a conflicting Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes TV show going on Hulu? Obviously, that's kind of a conflict of interest. So yeah, I honestly like the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider films. I know a lot of people, bash them. I mean, they are what they are. I've always said the first one is really good tentpole superhero movie making. I mean, that's kind of what they did back in that day. They just took the origin story and they ran with it, and it was a lot of fun. The second film is a little bit more out there. I wouldn't say it was a bad movie in any way, but it just felt like they were trying too hard to lean into like a different style of filmmaking that didn't feel like it was outright superhero, if that makes any sense. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below for the Ghost Rider R.I.P. Unfortunately, it is the end. Alright, let's take a look now. There's a few more things here we're going to talk about in the television realm. We got to look at the new costume for Brandon Routh's Superman, the Kingdom Come version of Superman. And finally, Brandon Routh is sporting the red trunks. Yes, he has graduated to those red trunks. And I'm really happy about that, as a red trunk purist. And it's really exciting because, a lot of people think of Superman Returns, and it's true, it's an underwhelming movie. I'm not a big fan of that movie. As I've said before, the difference between Superman Returns and Man of Steel is Superman Returns got the tone right, but the story wrong. And I think the reverse is true of Man of Steel. I think they got the tone wrong, but they had a more engaging story. Superman Returns is basically the retread of the original Superman movie. And that's kind of like what J.J. Abrams did with The Force Awakens, and Singer was doing that with Superman way before J.J. Abrams with Star Wars. It's very, it's sad because you've got supposedly talented filmmakers that can't escape the well, this is what I grew up with, and I basically want to emulate it because this is what inspired me. It's like, you know, you could be a little more original, you know? Anyway, so, yeah, this is the image making the rounds, a little more gray at the temple there for Brandon Routh. Sadly, he's going to be leaving Legends of Tomorrow. We're going to be talking about that in a second. But let me know what you think of this costume. I think it's a great costume. It evokes the original, I mean, I know it's the Kingdom Come costume, but it evokes the original Max Fleischer cartoons. You know, the original version of Superman's costume. So, yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting times. I'm looking forward to this Crisis series. I don't know exactly, you know, like I said, I'm gauging my expectations. I don't know exactly how they're going to fit in all this stuff, but apparently they're going to fit in all this stuff. The only one they're not fitting in is Lex Luthor. Apparently, the Michael Rosenbaum. I told you I was tired. The Michael Rosenbaum version of Lex Luthor, which is had high acclaim. I mean, even myself, who is not really a fan of the Smallville series, I liked Rosenbaum's Luthor. I wouldn't say it's my favorite Luthor, but he is probably, you know, up there, top 3, maybe, something like that. Again, I said on Twitter where I'm kind of disappointed in the way this turned out, but let's just take a look here. Michael Rosenbaum revealed via Twitter that he has decided to pass on WB's TV offer to reprise the role of Lex Luthor in the upcoming Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. His tweet said, "Friends, many of you have tweeted me and asked about my joining the Infinite crossover. I can't tell you how much this means to me. I'll just be straight up about this. WB called my agents Friday afternoon while I was in Florida visiting my grandfather in a nursing home. Their offer, no script, no idea what I'm doing, no idea when I'm shooting, basically no money, and the real kick in the pants, that's my word, not his, we have to know now. My simple answer was pass. I think you can understand why. I hope this answers all of your questions. Lovingly, Rosenbaum." So again, this is disappointing on a lot of levels, but like I said, I'd like to say that I could take this at face value, but my BS detector kind of went off. Bologna sandwiches. I kind of find it hard to believe that they were going to sort of approach Rosenbaum, you know, basically saying, we don't know what you're going to do, but basically, you know, sign up and you got to let us know today. That seems kind of funky. I'm not saying that he's lying, but there's more to this story, I think, than what's being communicated here. He says no script. I can understand that. I can believe that, but still, it's one of those things where they kind of want to know if you're involved, and then you get involved with the script. You know what I mean? It's like, I think they were probably going to write the script with him to sort of give an idea of, you know, what does he want to do? You know what I mean? I don't think that they were just going to give him a script and say, hey, this is your part. I think they were going to say, well, you know, let's have that conversation. Where do you think Lex is 10 years off? What do you think we should do from here? I think they just wanted to know that he wanted to be involved. Basically, no money. Again, this is kind of disappointing to me because, like I said on Twitter, Batman the Animated Series is one of the greatest incarnations of a comic book character, and it was basically done on a shoestring budget. I mean, the cast, the recording cast that would do the voices, reportedly they weren't paid very much, and I can only imagine that a 5-part crossover or whatever this is was not going to afford Rosenbaum a big part. They are probably just going to have him in my guess, 2 scenes would be generous. I don't think they're going to afford many of these guest stars more than 2 scenes. That's what we got with John Wesley Shipp's The Flash, to my regret, because I love Shipp and I love Shipp's Flash. We got like 2 scenes. And basically that's probably what they're going to give all these characters. You're going to see Lois and Clark in one setting, then you would probably see Lois and Clark with Lex, then maybe Lex would be you know, in another scene. You're not going to get a lot. And I think that's also something that he's not really stating, but that's another thing that weighed on his decision, which is basically, look, is it worth it to me to fly out and do this and do that when it's basically going to be a glorified cameo? And, you know, money obviously isn't going to be an incentive because they're not going to pay a whole lot for a glorified cameo. It just seems to me they kind of got off on the wrong foot, both of them. I think if they were both to try to, you know, as the old saying goes, cooler heads prevail, you know, they probably could have worked something out. I think they just approached him probably in the wrong way, and he wasn't probably in the frame of mind to be approached that way. He's talking about visiting his grandfather that is in a nursing home. Maybe that was a bad time to say, look, you want to sign up right now or not. So again, I think there's more to the story that meets the eye, but it's pretty much a foregone conclusion now that there is going to be no Lex Luthor reunion on Smallville. Disappointing for the fans of Smallville, I'm sure, because like I said, even I, as someone who is not a huge fan of the show, you know, I really, yeah, I liked what he brought to the character of Luthor. I still think John Cryer's version of Luthor is a little more my speed. It's a little more what I like in my Lex Luthor. Kind of, it's just a slightly more bitter version of Hackman's Luthor. That's also, I guess, what Kevin Spacey was playing, but that's kind of what you need, I think. I think Rosenbaum's was a little more, I think maybe sympathetic. I'm not sure, because, you know, it's sympathetic in the sense that you got to see more of what he went through. I think when you take the other Luthors into account, they just seem pretty much bad from the get-go. Alright, so sticking with this here, we're going to talk about Legends of Tomorrow adding a new cast member. Osric Chow, again, I believe is how you pronounce it. He's joined the cast of the upcoming Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover in a recurring role as Ryan Choi, who in the comics is the second person to become the Atom. So again, this is what I told you was going to be the case. I said the problem and the reason why they're removing Brandon Routh and Courtney Ford, Mrs. Routh, is because it's not playing to their demographic. It's not playing, as I said originally, it's not playing to the queer audiences, which is, I think, what they're trying for. But it's also not appealing to their diversity. You've got basically a white couple, and you're taking up space as far as they're concerned. You're taking up space that an Asian character needs to be in the show, because it's an ensemble show, and people really didn't take to Mona last year. So from what I understand, I don't really know what's happening. She is, for all intents and purposes, being written out. I mean, they might have her make a cameo, which is honestly all her character really deserves. Same with Gary. You know, they sort of foisted them on us last season, and I don't think anybody really, you know, responded well to it, except maybe the families of said actors. But yeah, let's see. The character is being described as a physics professor at Ivytown University. He is just a normal guy who comes to learn that he has a pivotal role to play in the coming crisis. Additionally, the early word is that Choi will indeed suit up as the Atom during the crossover, taking up the mantle from Ray Palmer. So again, I don't know, this is disappointing to me because I don't like mantle passings. I've said this all along as well. I don't like... It took me a long time, honestly, to accept the Robin mantle passing, and that just went from white boy to white boy to white boy, and I still didn't like it. So it really has nothing to do with, like, race or anything, again. But finally I kind of realized, okay, there was a good story to be told with Jason Todd. So I can accept Dick Grayson becoming Nightwing. And there was an even better story to be told with Jason Todd moving on to being Red Hood and, you know, Tim Drake being the more recent Robin. I still can't warm up to Damian Wayne, but that's another subject for another time. But so I mean, you have to have a pretty compelling story. That's kind of like, I mean, looking on the Marvel side, I wasn't happy that they bypassed Hank Pym in the MCU. You got to start with Hank Pym. But again, they kind of spun it that even if we didn't really see the Hank Pym years, they existed, and I really like the Scott Lang version. So it's like, if you can make it work, if you can make it where I feel like, I understand why the mantle's being passed, I'll accept it. But again, it's a difficult thing for me, and I don't really see any reason for this mantle passing other than just, again, checking off the diversity boxes, because that's what we do. And like I said, I'm not against the adding of diversity. You just got to give us a good character. I'm sure there is plenty of good characters, good Asian characters in the DC universe and in their catalog that they could call upon, without having to basically give Brandon Routh his walking papers, because I think pretty much everybody that watches that show is a fan of that character, of that actor as well. All right, more news from the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. Ashley Scott, who played Helena Kyle, a.k.a. the Huntress, on the WB's short-lived Birds of Prey television series. I never watched that. I think I seen the pilot. I don't know, did it last more than the pilot? I think I might have seen the pilot when it aired, and then I didn't go back to it, and I think it got canceled before I could. I mean, because I think they only aired like 3 episodes, or something to that effect. Anyhow, Ashley Scott will reprise her role for the upcoming Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. No word on whether her former co-stars Dinah Meyer, Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, Oracle, and or Rachel Scarston, Dinah Redmond, Black Canary. Dinah Redmond? There's another? They keep changing the last name of that Black Canary. I don't know why. No word on whether they'll reprise their roles as well, but the possibility certainly can't be ruled out now that Scott is officially on board. Scarston is also a series regular on Batwoman, playing the villainous Alice, so the likelihood she appears at least in some capacity does seem to be high. Yeah, they're gonna get it all on. They're gonna get it all on Crisis, and why not, right? Why not? I also seen a rumor where they're saying that Linda Carter is being approached to reprise the role of Wonder Woman, which, of course, that's a no-brainer. You know what I mean? That's a given. They really, should be pressing for that. All right, so I think that's about it for our crisis segment, and I'm in crisis constantly. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited for Crisis on Infinite Earths? Do you think it's just going to be a major collection of cameos and really not going to quite hit the spot that a lot of fans are hoping for? I'm afraid for that possibility, but I am still very excited. So let me know what you think in the comments below. We're coming up on an hour, and we still got a lot to talk about here because of old-winded cuss that I am. I'll just go on and on with these things. Okay, Birds of Prey is still in the news, though, because we have some confirmation that there will be a Birds of Prey spinoff from Arrow. It is going to happen. This was rumored recently that Katie Cassidy approached the Arrow team, the team of Bertolanti and Guggenheim and so forth, to do a Birds of Prey show where they would spin off the female characters from Arrow into their own TV series. Now, this sounds exciting to me because I love all these actresses. I mean, Katie Cassidy, Juliana Harkavy, and Catherine McNamara are at least presumably going to headline the show. It sounds pretty good to me. I mean, there is some question as to whether they'll call it Birds of Prey. We've got 2 Black Canaries, so I don't know why they couldn't. They have Mia Smoke / Queen. I don't know. What is her character going to be called? It could be Artemis, maybe, from Young Justice. That could be what they do with her, but again, that's not really a Birds of Prey character. I don't know, we'll see. According to multiple sources, Catherine McNamara, Katie Cassidy, and Juliana Harkavy are set to reprise their respective roles of Mia Smoke, Green Arrow, and Canary's Laurel Lance and Dinah Drake, respectively. The untitled potential series is set to air as a backdoor pilot in Arrow's upcoming final season, which premieres October 15th. We're not sure when the show will be set, but if it takes place in the future or time travel is involved, there's a decent chance Oliver Queen's son William, played by Ben Lewis, and Diggle's adopted son Connor Hawk, Joseph David Jones, will also feature. Although they probably won't call the show Birds of Prey, it will essentially appear to be a small screen take on that all-female team. I don't know why they couldn't call it that, because the film is going to be very different from the series, I'd imagine. I don't know why that's a big deal. DC tends to make a bigger issue out of that, or I should say Warner Brothers maybe makes a bigger issue of that than they ought to. I really like to see William become some kind of superhero. Wasn't he supposed to be... See, that's the thing. They're making Connor Hawk Diggle's son, which I don't understand. Technically, he's Bronze Tiger's son, and then Diggle adopts him. I don't understand why they don't just make William Connor Hawk, right? Wouldn't that make sense? I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Anyway, the only other thing I have to be concerned about is, as they said, is this going to be a future series or a time travel series? I'm hoping that at some point in this Crisis on Infinite Earths, they're going to time travel Mia and Connor and some of these other characters to the present. Their past, our present. Because I think it's too much to ask of these beautiful actresses to, again, I always say the Johnny Torch rule is you don't make a beautiful actress ugly. And of course, they're not making them ugly, but having to age up these actresses, Katie Cassidy and Juliana Harkavy, to being like in their late 50s is, is a crime. You want to see them still in their prime, running around in the heroics. So hopefully this will be a present day series. At least that's what I'm thinking. Alright, so, yeah, I don't think I mentioned my feelings on the new Black Canary costume for Black Siren. I really don't like it. It looks a lot like a X-Men Singer era, costume. It doesn't look, but they're never gonna do the fishnets and the jacket and stuff. I mean, you're whistling Dixie in this day and age thinking that's gonna ever happen. So and I don't like the haircut either. I don't like the butch haircut on Black Canary. They did the same thing with Smallville. And I guess that's something that was in the comics at some point, but I don't ever remember Black Canary ever having anything but long, luxurious blonde hair. So I always kind of bristle at that. But, again, that's the new costume. I mean, what are you going to do? It is what it is, I guess. But it would be cool if they could get... I always said they should get Katie Lotz in on this show as well. Because I don't know if Legends is winding down. I honestly don't know how much gas they have in the tank. But that would be probably cool to see the White Canary, the Black Canary, and Black Siren, which I don't know. I guess she's going to still be called Black Siren? Or are we going to have two canaries on the team? I don't know. Alright, let me know what you think in the comments below about the possibility of a Birds of Prey spin-off. Alright, let's head on to the big news. We're finally winding down to the big news of the day. Let's see. First off, let's tackle this one. Sony is saying that they're going to move on with a Madam Web movie. At the insistence of absolutely no one. This is almost like the Aunt May movie, I think. But there is some potential. This could build up to something interesting, if nothing else. Let's see. Sony Pictures is moving forward with their expanding Spider-Man film universe in new and unique ways, as Collider is now reporting that the studio has enlisted Morbius scribe Matt Sazma and Burke Sharpless to pen a Madam Web film set in the burgeoning live-action Spider-Verse. Now, I still haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse, but what I'm thinking they're going to try to do is they're going to try to cap off this burgeoning Spider universe with a build-up to sort of a Spider universe where they're going to bring back Andrew Garfield, they're going to bring back Tobey Maguire, they're going to try to fit as many Spider-Men into the film as possible and make it sort of their Avengers Endgame. I think that's what they're going to try to do at some point. While the potential project is still in the scripting stage, the introduction of a character like Cassandra Webb, aka Madam Webb, who possesses a wide variety of psychic abilities, including telepathy, clairvoyance, and prescience, may inadvertently reveal where Sony hopes to head next with their Spider-Verse, especially considering that one of the character's more popular and well-known appearances was in Spider-Man the Animated Series, where she brought together multiple Spider-Men from alternate realities and sent them on a mission to save the multiverse. So what do you think about that? Of course, I remember that. That was where I first learned of Madam Web. She, of course, was voiced by Joan Lee, the wife of Stan Lee. She had a much bigger role in that show than he did. He didn't get into the show until the last, I think it was the season finale. It might have been just the last season, but I think it was the season finale. So let me know what you think about the potential Madam Web film and the possibility of there being a Spider film universe. Now, the big news, of course, he's back. Yeah, everybody thought he was gone for good, right? But no, the MCU still has their mitts on the webhead. Now, I had already gone on record saying I preferred that Sony be able to induct him into their universe. I would much prefer seeing Spider-Man in Venom 2 than I would a Spider-Man 3. I make no bones about the fact that I don't like MCU Spider-Man. I like Tom Holland. I think he does the best he can with what's given to him, but there really is nothing... There really is nothing positive I can say about the Spider-Man universe. They've changed his entire supporting cast, and I'm not going to get into all of it again, but, you know, trying to get me excited for the potential of, you know, Spider-Man going forward in the MCU, I just don't see it. I don't see what they're going to do differently to, you know, to placate me. You know, basically a longtime Spider-Man fan. What are they going to do to make me happy now? We already went through the whole business with Iron Man. He's taken over for Uncle Ben. We're not having Uncle Ben in this series. We're not having him even mentioned. We're not... honestly, it's just disappointing. It feels nothing like Spider-Man when Aunt May is made a, you know, hottie. It's the supporting cast looks nothing like the Spider-Man supporting cast. I've gone through this all multiple times, but apparently a deal has been brokered where Spider-Man will return to the MCU, at least in the short term. You know, it makes sense. It makes sense that they want to finish up that cliffhanger, which is what I think this deal does. I think they're just doing a deal now so they could finish off the cliffhanger, because where does Sony go from that cliffhanger? And, you know, Kevin Feige, he's crazy like a fox. You know, he probably figured that putting their back against the wall like that, where they had to get, you know, a resolution to that story and those characters, you know, now you give, you know, at least you put the ball in Feige's court to get them out of that and say, okay, we'll take over from there, but not trying to monkey around with where you left us. You know, in other words, like I always say, leave the house the way you found it. Don't go knocking down walls, and, you know, leave it in livable shape for the next tenant. And that's kind of what I think they're trying to do here. Alright, after a very public falling out, Disney, Marvel Studios, and Sony Pictures has come to terms on a deal which means that Kevin Feige and his studio will produce Spider-Man 3. Don't you hate it when you have a piece of hair in your mouth and you can't get it out? There it is. Okay. That means the wall crawler is staying in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for now, at least. The movie has been given a release date of July 16th, 2021, which makes it part of Phase 4. Feige says, I am thrilled that Spidey's journey in the MCU will continue, and I and all of us at Marvel Studios are very excited that we get to keep working on it. Spider-Man is a powerful icon and a hero whose story crosses all ages and audiences around the globe. He also happens to be the only hero with the superpower to cross cinematic universes, so as Sony continues to develop their own Spideyverse, you never know what surprises the future may hold. In other words, it sounds like we should expect Peter Parker to appear in the Spideyverse too. That was something I think they wanted in the deal. Sony wanted to be able to, put Tom Holland into the Sonyverse. Well, at the same time, I think Marvel wanted they wanted a couple of bucks for that, and I think they had to work that out. That they were making they were making something from Holland going to the Sonyverse. Let's see. Sony has agreed to the terms originally proposed by Disney, which will see them co-finance the third movie in return for a 25% equity stake. So again, Sony kind of getting the shaft here. It looks like Marvel, the mouse is getting its way, That's kind of the way it goes. I mean, nobody really says no to Disney unless you want to, you want to tread the path of woe, you know what I mean? All right, let's see. While things originally got heated between the two sides, Disney went from getting 5% of the first dollar gross to demanding 50% co-financing stake. However, while Disney originally played hardball, they backed down after D23 once it became clear the fans were not happy with them. It was confirmed that Spider-Man will return to the MCU for one more solo outing and an appearance in a currently undisclosed future Marvel Studios film. So again, if there is another Avengers movie, which one isn't technically on the books yet, Spidey will be in that one as well. It could be that he's just guest starring in somebody else's film. I mean, it could be, he could show up in Thor: Love and Thunder or Guardians 3. I mean, your guess is as good as anybody's, I suppose. Although it's probable that he's going to show up in another Avengers film, I would say. That was kind of the point of bringing him into the MCU. Let's see. It sounds like Sony Pictures will also use Tom Holland's wall crawler in their own universe. One that is very loosely connected to the MCU. However, a new post from The Hollywood Reporter points to Kevin Feige having a very different endgame in mind for the Webbed Warrior. Now it's been confirmed that as part of the arrangement, Spider-Man will also appear in a future Marvel Studios film. Let's see. Yeah, I pretty much already covered that story. Let's see. Possibly a Fantastic Four movie in 2022. Let's see. Amy Pascal also weighed in on the arrangement. This is terrific. Peter Parker's story took a dramatic turn in Far From Home. I could not be happier. We will all be working together as we see where his journey goes. This has been a winning partnership for the studios, the franchise, and the fans, and I'm overjoyed it will continue. Though both sides are hinting the pact could be extended again, Feige seems to be plotting an endgame that will wrap up Peter Parker's story in the MCU and could see the character cross over into Sony's own budding universe of characters. According to Deadline, as Sony progresses their own Marvel universe, with titles like Venom 2 and Sinister 6, and Disney Marvel their own, there could be a call and answer between the two franchises as they acknowledge details between the two in what it would be loosely described as a shared, detailed universe. So there you have it. It looks like Spidey is back in the MCU. Again, I'll try to reserve judgment about what's going to happen going forward because apparently Tom Holland is going to be free to go into the Sonyverse and appear in some Sony films about Spider-Man's villains. So there is potentially some good still to be had. Again, I'm not crazy about what they've done. I think, going forward, they're just going to give us more what they've already given us. So this is not really exciting on my part. They're probably going to continue to give us some, pretty decent villains. I liked Michael Keaton's Vulture. I liked Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio. But the content of the films is still, it's not my cup of tea. Let's put it that way. All right, so let's move on. Let me know what you think in the comments below as we wrap up with our final story. What do you think about Webhead returning to the MCU, at least in some form or fashion for the time being? All right, and last but not least, what is this about Kevin Feige? He is going over to a galaxy far, far away. The Hollywood Reporter has learned that Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige is in the process of developing a brand new Star Wars movie with Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy. Excuse me while I have to choke down the bile as I say that name. Walt Disney Studios co-chairman and CCO Alan Horn confirmed the report and shared the following statement. We are excited about the projects Kathy and the Lucasfilm team are working on, not only in terms of Star Wars, but also Indiana Jones and reaching into other parts of the company, including Children of Blood and Bone with Emma Watts and Fox. I know I should point out, I forgot to, put this as one of the stories, but we're going so far over time here that I didn't want to put too many stories in. We'll have to save that for next week. Bob Iger's book about, it's making the rounds of George Lucas's disappointment in the Star Wars franchise. We'll talk more about that later. Also, Indiana Jones. Apparently, the script was rejected for Indiana Jones 5 yet again. David Kopp is being brought back in to take another pass at the script, I guess. But hopefully that Indiana Jones film will get done while Harrison Ford is still with us. Continuing on with Horn's quote. With the close of the Skywalker saga, Kathy is pursuing a new era in Star Wars storytelling, and knowing what a die-hard fan Kevin is, it made sense for these two extraordinary producers to work on a Star Wars film together. Alright, so first let me say, I'm not at all thrilled about what Kevin Feige's been doing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like I said, I think he's really dropped the ball recently, so I can't get overly excited about him taking part on a Star Wars film. I mean, had you told me this, circa Civil War, I would have said, oh man, that's awesome. But now, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't really too fond on the last, 3 or 4 Marvel movies. I mean, I say that, but I liked Ant-Man and the Wasp. I always say that. But I mean, apart from the Ant-Man films, they really haven't done anything great apart from Civil War. That was the last film I really enjoyed. I liked Infinity War. It was pretty good. But again, I don't know. So let's see the rest of the copy. Again, Kathleen Kennedy. I mean, is she still going to have her hands on it? We're still going to have this woke narrative, and we all know that Feige is more than willing to play with the woke narrative, and so that's why we have Brie Larson on the screen. We'll get to that in a second. Let me read the rest of the copy here. While further details remain under lock and key for now, some Hollywood Reporter sources believe this may be a precursor to Feige taking on a larger role within Lucasfilm. That would be something. I don't know. Others seem to feel it's just business as usual, and it was Feige's immense passion for the franchise that ultimately led him to partner up with Kennedy, who top Disney execs reaffirm will remain in her current position as president of Lucasfilm. So, again, I think it's like a PR move. I think it's given Feige a little present because, he's done so well for himself. It's like, why wouldn't you want to work with him? And they want to take the heat off Kennedy and not make it look like she's brainstorming the next wave of Star Wars films, because obviously she did a bang-up job with that in the past. Additionally, it's strongly believed that Feige already has one major star lined up for a specific role in the new film, if and when he makes the project official. Actually, that's garbage cheer. It says when he makes the project becomes official. You know what it means, but I don't know. Marvel Studios President Kevin Feige working on a film for Lucasfilm. Let's see. We've also learned Feige has someone in mind for the lead role in the mysterious project. It appears as if both Chris Evans and Brie Larson would like to be considered for the part, both making overtures on Twitter that they would like to be in the film. So, that's not, not wildly unusual. Of course, he has ties to both of them. Brie Larson has been lobbying for a role for quite some time. That's, this is a second picture of her dressed in a Jedi robe. She's been wanting to play in the Star Wars universe for some time. This is the first time I've heard Chris Evans talking about it. But again, I don't know. I mean, a lot, you know, Brie Larson carries a lot of baggage with fans, and like I said, you put Brie Larson in the thumbnail and the title of a video, and you're going to get at least a dozen views, which is why I used Brie in the thumbnail for this one. But again, I don't particularly have anything against Brie Larson myself personally. I know a lot of people don't like her personally. I just say give her a good part. Captain Marvel, of course, was not a great part. It was very divisive. I mean, it was written as a girl power, rah-rah girl power message, and that's, I think, why a lot of people didn't take to it. But like I said, I don't care what her views are. I don't care if she spouts them in public. Just give me a good, you know, a good movie or TV show, whatever. But apparently this is going to be a movie. But, you know, make the woke points invisible, and I have no problem with Brie Larson. The same with Chris Evans. I mean, you know, he's as woke as they come on Twitter as well, but I still loved him as Captain America. I mean, because they didn't push that woke narrative so much in Captain America. Or, you know, in the Avengers movies or any of it. So it is possible. It's just that they haven't done so with Brie Larson and Captain Marvel. They played up both in Captain Marvel and Endgame her girl power motif and the rah-rah girl power stuff, which of course leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But like I said, if they could just move away from that, particularly with Star Wars, you know, I wouldn't have a problem with it. The thing is, though, is Kevin Feige, you know, is responsible for Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame, so heck if I know if he's going to try to approach Star Wars any differently, specifically with Kathleen Kennedy, who's been, you know, making Star Wars a poster child for this female empowerment and feminist agenda type stuff that we've been seeing pretty much from the get-go. All right, so let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you want to see Kevin Feige helm a Star Wars movie, possibly a franchise? You know, maybe a trilogy? I would say I'm much more confident in him helming a franchise than Roundhead Rian Johnson or the guys from Game of Thrones. I would probably give him the nod over the others. So I definitely would give him the nod over Rian Johnson. Let's be honest here. But, you know, I don't really know what the Game of Thrones guys do because I don't watch Game of Thrones. So, and also let me know what you think about Brie Larson and or Chris Evans headlining a Star Wars movie going forward. And so that about wraps it up for another Johnny Torch Live broadcast. A little bit extra long here, but a lot of subjects to cover. And you know, we like to get down into the nitty-gritty of these things. You know, I like a long live stream because I don't have a problem with breaking it up and going back to it a couple of times, or, you know, passing some stuff that you're not interested in. That's fine. Because they say it kind of plays heck with your algorithms, and you can't be found on YouTube with a bad algorithm. But this is the way, this is the way I do it. I still would like to do, I must say this 1,000 times, I still like to do some recorded videos when I can figure out a software that'll work for me. But, yeah, that's all in the future. Okay, so wrapping it up until next we meet, we are here every Saturday, so be sure and check us out again next week for the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on Johnny Torch Live for another Johnny Torch Live broadcast. Until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.